Hello, explorers of the cinematic universe. Welcome back to another episode of Podio Commentary, where we peel back the layers of the silver screen to reveal the hidden gems and intriguing insights of today's most compelling movies. Today, we're going to venture into the not-so-distant future, a world teetering on the brink of oblivion, with the 2023 action-packed science fiction thriller, The Creator. Directed by the visionary Gareth Edwards, this film takes us to Los Angeles, reborn from the ashes of a nuclear fallout, where artificial intelligence just isn't a tool, it's an adversary. Imagine a desolate battlefield where the fate of humanity hangs in the balance, and the only key to salvation is hunting down the elusive mastermind known as the Creator. Starring the dynamic John David Washington and the ever-enigmatic Gemma Chan, along with a stellar ensemble cast, this movie isn't just a chase. It's a race against time, mortality, and the very essence of war itself. So, fasten your seatbelts and prepare for a deep dive into a world where machines dictate the rhythm of war drums, because on today's show, we're not just talking about another sci-fi flick. We're unraveling a tapestry of complex characters, groundbreaking effects, and a story that might just be the harbinger of what's to come in our own reality. Stay with us as we decode the mystery, the mayhem, and the sheer cinematic marvel that is The Creator. Are you ready to question everything you know about the thin line between man and machine? Well, let's get started here today on Podio Commentary. Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome back to the show. I know it's been a minute since I've been doing one of these, but I'm now getting back on track. I've set the format. I've looked at the kind of films I want to cover and how I want to cover them. And I feel like we can now finally take Podio Commentary to a place, a fun conversation that not only celebrates film and the medium, but really just allows us to be, to have fun as nerds and to enjoy this stuff with, I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it in a safe space. Okay. In a safe space. Today, I want to talk about The Creator because this is a movie that I've been wanting to see for a number of reasons. One, Gareth Edwards is a fantastic director. I love Rogue One, even though I know Tony Gilroy kind of saw it over the finish line. I loved Godzilla 2014. I think it's like the lesser appreciated movie in that particular bunch of films in the Monsterverse, but I still think it's really good. Not my favorite. That's King of the Monsters, but it's still a solid entry and a movie that really kind of played from the human perspective, which is something I really enjoyed. And this movie also very much touches on the human perspective, human emotions of loss and grief and regret. And it is a really engaging movie. I finally got around to see it. I know it came out like almost 2 months ago, and I finally got around to go see it this last weekend because I got lucky. At my job, I had a 3.5 hour break. And so I was right next to the movie theater. I text my boss. I said, hey, is it cool that I go watch this? He's like, fine, that's cool. So I went and I saw the movie and I got paid to do it. So it's kind of a double whammy, which is something that I really enjoy. But let me just say that even though this movie has quote unquote flopped, if you listen to online pundits who talk about movies, my screening was sold out. I legitimately had to sit all the way in the back and all the way off to one side. That was how many seats were available in the auditorium. Not many. Now, it wasn't a bad seat. The way the theater is pretty good. And I wasn't too sure if I had to rush out of work at any point in time, because, I was still on the clock and everything. So thankfully I didn't have to do that. So I got to enjoy the movie, because by the end of the film, and I'll talk more about my feelings on this as we get there, but by the end of the movie, I was tearing up. I was getting really, really emotional about the movie because, I've got a couple kids that I love. And this movie touches on a lot of things, a lot of fears that I think some parents have, as well as fear of the unknown, fear of technology, fear of the world succumbing to something like Skynet, even though in this specific instance, it's not the artificial intelligence that's the Skynet. It's the humans. So it kind of turns it on its ear. And I've seen people call this like pro AI, pro China propaganda, the movie Bob, if you know who he is. And it couldn't be further from the truth. But it goes to show you that when you have a story that is largely centered around artificial intelligence, especially right now during the writers and the actors strike, and everyone is all up in arms about AI and what it can do, and is it going to destroy everything? They fail to look at what it can do, and in this case, what it becomes. And of course, again, propaganda plays a big point in all of this. which is why I think it's really, really, really fascinating. So one of the things I want to do with Podio Commentary going forward, I know it's going to take a little bit of time to get going, but one of the things I really want to do is I want to hear what you guys have to say, because this isn't a live show. This is me talking about the movie, talking about the production history of it, giving my thoughts, everything else. But what I want to do at the end of the episode, and I'm going to give you guys heads up on when episodes are coming out and what the movie is going to be, a couple days in advance at least, and I have a call-in line. So the voicemail line you can use is, write this down if you need to, it's 323-400-4956. And you can call in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if you want to let me know your thoughts, your opinions, or ask me any questions on the movies I'm going to be covering that week. And then I might pick you and play the voicemail at the end of the episode for the fan interaction moments. I think that's a great way to open up the conversation in a way that the audience, you guys, can participate in. And I'm looking forward to your phone calls and your messages and your thoughts and your opinions, because I'm sure we're going to disagree on quite a bit. And I'm sure we're going to agree on quite a bit too. But either way, I'm just excited to see where this whole thing goes. So without further ado, let's jump into the plot synopsis of what the creator is. Now, just to let everyone know, if you haven't seen the movie, we're going to be going into spoiler territory. You've been warned, but let's go. So the year is 2070. Los Angeles isn't just the city of angels. It's ground zero of a past nuclear disaster and the front line of a war that's unlike anything we've ever known before. This is the world of the creator, where AI has gone rogue and humanity's last hope lies with an ex-Special Forces agent with enough grit to make John McClane look like a choir boy. Our guy, played by the charismatic John David Washington, is pulled out of the shadows for one last job: to track down the genius behind the menacing tech that's keeping mankind on the brink. But once he gets to where the creator is supposed to be, he finds something wildly unexpected. A young girl who is an natural-born AI. He doesn't know what she is or who she is, or even if she's important. But they end up being bonded together as he uses her to find out whether or not his ex-wife is alive. And through that particular journey, they become extremely close. And once you discover that she is a scan of what would be his child, it only puts the emphasis of the father-daughter relationship further up, as the U.S. Army is attempting to track them down for the sake of eliminating her. And at the end of the movie, it definitely kind of goes where you think it's going to go. But there's a few twists and turns along the way that I think will keep you on the edge of your seat and definitely keep you emotionally grounded to what Gareth Edwards put together with the creator. I don't want to spoil the whole movie, but that's your general plot synopsis of it. The movie is one that, as I said on Twitter after I saw it, it's kind of derivative, to be fair. It is kind of derivative. The plot line, man with nothing to lose ends up going back into the field, ends up finding something he didn't expect, now has to protect said thing. Stoic action hero protecting child is not anything new. Look at Lone Wolf and Cub. The Mandalorian did it. A bunch of other movies have done it. This is no different. But the stakes here are, in this particular scenario, John David Washington's character is trying to find out what happened to his wife, because when she was, I think 7 months pregnant, roughly, he was deep undercover with her, trying to get close to her father, who is the creator of the AI. And the U.S. military runs a raid, and she leaves with them, and she's killed. And so it picks up I think 5 years later, and he's just down and distraught and angry and broken and doesn't care anymore until the U.S. military says she's still alive. And that's his motivation. So you could argue maybe in the sense of like fridging, they kind of fridged her a little bit, but I think it works really well for the story. And once he ends up meeting Alfie, the AI, they really end up getting into this scenario where it's like it is trying to just get from point A to point B, but they have so much opposition everywhere they're going, because now they've got not only the new Asia, police force after them, they've got Allison Janney and one other special forces guy trying to track them down. And that only leads to more chaos and more death and more craziness throughout this journey, leading to a moment that you think is going to be one way, but it really isn't. And you know what? I'm going to get to that. I got a little ahead of myself on this one, but I do want to talk a bit about the production history. So in November 2019, the film industry buzzed with the news that Gareth Edwards was set to direct and co-write a new science fiction film titled The Creator. The announcement in February 2020 promised a groundbreaking take on the future of artificial intelligence. As the project gained momentum, John David Washington was cast in May 2021, and that signaled this as a high-caliber production, considering the work that John David Washington had done previously. Not only that, but the cast was further bolstered by the talents of Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Sturgill Simpson, and Allison Janney. It had a budget of $80 million, and they shot the movie in Thailand in January of 2022. The diverse landscapes promised a visually stunning post-apocalyptic world, and by May of that year, the primary shooting concluded, setting the stage for an intricate post-production process using very photorealistic CGI. However, in July of 2023, with the release of the original trailer, it sparked a significant controversy when it was revealed that some of the footage used in that trailer was in fact real footage of the 2020 Beirut explosion. And this led to a lot of people crying on Twitter about it and putting the movie under intense scrutiny on social media. This was also happening during the writer's strike and the actor's strike. Both of those unions were heavily campaigning against artificial intelligence. And here comes a movie that has kind of a pro-AI bent, even though the movie itself is not necessarily 100% pro-artificial intelligence. It uses artificial intelligence to establish a group of people who are the other, and our desire to destroy the other. Yeah, sure, based upon them detonating a nuclear bomb in Los Angeles, but even that's one of those things that's kind of met with, did it really happen this way? It's said that no, it was an accident on the Americans' part, but they blamed it on the AI. Of course, that's, you could almost argue that's neither here nor there, because it is a plot device for the film, but it's not really one that I feel is like 100% necessary to kind of keep up with. It's like, oh, okay, the Americans did it, blamed it on the AI. Yeah, that, you know what, you can buy it. You can 100% believe that that's going to be the case. Now, Gareth Edwards did address this controversy head on during a Reddit AMA in September of 2023, clarifying that the contentious footage was actually just a placeholder and reaffirming its absence from the final film. Nevertheless, the production faced further challenges from the Hollywood labor disputes, which impacted promotional activities and overshadows the film's early screenings at the TCL Chinese Theater. Yet the film premiered successfully at Fantastic Fest and Beyond Fest later in that month, followed quickly by a UK premiere, building a steady momentum towards its wider release. Then on September 29th, 2023, The Creator hit theaters just days after the conclusion of the Writers Guild of America strike, competing against other blockbusters like, Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie, and Saw X, both of which did quite well. The box office reflected a modest start with only 14.1 million opening weekend. And of course, this was attributed to the challenges of marketing during the strike and the complexities of releasing an original IP in a market that is extensively driven by established franchises. Critically, however, The Creator did find a warmer reception, with the visual effects, cinematography, and action sequences garnering praise. It did quite well. There was some criticism of the screenplay and the thematic execution, but overall it did earn a 66% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a score of 63 on Metacritic, indicating generally favorable reviews. Now, audience surveys from CinemaScore and Post Track echoed the sentiment, highlighting the film's success in captivating its viewers. pretty good testament to the enduring appeal of thought-provoking science fiction. And you guys got to remember, we are in an age where movies like Blade Runner, while they're lauded now as science fiction, noir movie classics, all that kind of stuff, they bombed back in the day, right? If you know the history of Blade Runner, you know that it bombed back in the day. It didn't do as well as they wanted. It didn't bomb as bad as The Thing, which opened on the same day as Blade Runner, but it still was largely a movie that wasn't critically accepted, as I want to say culturally accepted at the time. I feel the creator is going to end up being the same way. However, like I said before, it was shot on a pretty modest $80 million budget, and it has grossed worldwide at this point $101.9 million. So while it has earned more than its production budget, it's definitely not in profitable or even break-even categories just yet. And to be fair, that might never happen. And it is a shame. But like I said, when I saw the movie, the theater was sold out on a Saturday night at 7:00 with Five Nights at Freddy's and Taylor Swift playing just down the road, just in the same theater. Tons of people there for those. This one still had a steady audience of people. And I live in a city with anywhere, about 50, 60,000 people. So it does have a draw. And I do think word of mouth will ultimately work well for this movie. So let me talk more about the film itself, like what I really liked about it. I like the setup. I like the story quite a bit. I like the idea that you have a man who's broken, but he's broken after he was trying to undermine the AI and work undercover with them as a way to, flesh out or kind of flush out who the creator is. And when he goes through everything and he gets, teams up with Alfie and he's trying to bring her along because, she knows who the creator is and she's seen his wife. She has seen her and and can lead him to her. And, through the process of this, like they just have really great interactions. And the actress who played Alfie did such a great job with, just emotions, like you almost like she was a child. She is a child that is going through childhood things, emotions and trauma. And sure, she's artificial intelligence, but she doesn't act and feel like AI. And that's kind of the whole point, is that the AI just wants to be seen as human. The AI, which the Americans, and you could almost argue the Western world, views them as others, which is why in order to win the war, they have this massive ship called the Nomad that just kind of basically flies over New South Asia and just bombs where they feel they need to bomb. They'll locate a target and then they just bring the ship over and like fire its missiles. I don't want to argue that it's indiscriminate bombing, but there's definitely a fair amount of civilian casualties and they don't seem to care. And I do look at that as being a bit of a commentary on, you could argue like our own military industrial complex and our indiscriminate bombing and our indiscriminate taking of civilian lives. Not that I'm trying to wax political, but I do think that Gareth Edwards was making a bit of a commentary on that. But like I said, the movie was largely predictable. If you've seen other movies similar to this, you know where it's going to go, right? They're going to stop the bad guy. They're going to save the day. The child is going to be spared. The adult is probably going to die. I mean, dude, Logan had a very similar like plot structure. And actually very similar plot structure because, he was related to Laura, right? X-23. And in this case, you've got Alfie being kind of like an artificial intelligence scan of what, their child would have looked like if the child would have survived. What really got me was the whole time he's looking for his wife. He's looking for Gemma Chan. And when he finds her, in your mind, you're thinking like, this is going to be a movie. Again, everything's kind of been pretty structured, pretty standard. You get it. But you think she's going to be there because she's Nirmata. She's the creator. She's the daughter of the creator. And when the creator died, she took on that mantle. But you expect her to be alive because that's what the movie's been telling you this whole time. But the movie's also been kind of hinting at other things as well. But largely it's making you think she's going to be alive. Again, it's kind of derivative. When they get there and they find that she's been in a coma for 5 years, that she's brain dead. And yet no one there can kill her. No one can put her out of her misery because they are programmed to not hurt humans. Again, and that's exemplified through this scene and another scene I do want to talk about. But they wait for him to be the one to put her out of, her misery, right? Which I thought that was sad. That was a real sad moment, to be honest with you, because I wasn't really expecting it. But of course, there is the idea that, you can brain scan a dead person and implant that scan into an AI, as showcased earlier in the film, which I thought was interesting. And it kind of reminded me of that scene in Wild Wild West when that one guy gets decapitated and Kevin Kline's like, if we work really quickly, we can get a snapshot of we can scan his retina and we can see the last thing that he has seen. And that's kind of what this is. But the one guy that they tested on earlier on has been dead for hours, so they can only get like 30 seconds. But when they're able to, Allison Janney's character is able to make the scan of, Gemma Chan's brain, like she's only been dead a few minutes. So we don't quite know how long that memory would be able to survive in an artificial intelligence body. But at this point, we know that that's going to happen. So again, while they got us with the whole notion that she's dead and he had to be the one to kill her, the woman that he's been, regretting his actions for 5 years. His wife died, his child died. That's what he thinks. He's just completely torn apart as a human. He now has this opportunity, right? And so like they get out of there as the US military comes on in and just starts murking everybody. And it was a great scene. It was an awesome scene. There's a couple things with the scene that I liked. So one, the US military has AI that they use as basically like running bombs. And they have these AIs that are strapped with massive bombs that they send out there to wipe out the civilians. And the first one they send out has a line of dialogue. I thought was really funny because he just goes, "It was a pleasure serving you." And then just trots off and runs right past the front defenses and then just blows up a whole bunch of civilians. And then the other one I thought was interesting was there was one of the AI bots that kind of looks like the Arbiter from Halo, right? A little bit like the Covenant. And he is being targeted by the big, massive mega tank. And he's running, trying to get away from it, break its line of sight. And he runs up on a hut, and in the hut are like 8-9 children, and they're all huddled together and they're scared. And he stops, and you see him like go, if I go in, like realize that if he goes in there, he's going to die. They're going to die. So instead, he just runs back the other direction and gets blown up as to protect the humans, which is the one thing the AI has largely been saying this whole time. So the propaganda is that they want to kill humans. They want to take over. The reality is they don't want to do that. And that really is something that people need to pay attention to, because propaganda is a massive, massive force that we have to deal with in our society more often than not. And this movie does pretty decent way of kind of like explaining that thematically. Now, obviously, Alfie gets captured by the Americans and they want to kill her, but she's got the ability to kind of control all the electronics. So she won't go quietly unless it's John David Washington comes in and does it. And then from there, they kind of, they trick everybody. He puts her to sleep, doesn't kill her. And then when they go to incinerate her at Ground Zero, they end up being able to escape. And they commandeer a moon flight to the Nomad base in order to blow the Nomad base up again, because this is, we can see all this coming. None of this is even like remotely something that's not available. It's like, what's going to happen. Well, what got me is the very end, because obviously, she gets out of there. John David Washington's going to die. We know he's going to die. But before everything happened, she came across an AI that looks like Nirmata, that looks like her mother. And she takes the data chip and she puts it in her neck, but the mom doesn't wake up in time. And so she waits as long as she can, obviously, because of that choice. She ends up like that. That's what kind of causes the divide, is they weren't able to reconnect because she made that choice, but she made that choice because she wants to, be a family. She wants to meet her mother. She wants to do all this stuff, right? But then at the very end, like throughout the whole movie, John David Washington keeps saying, I would do anything to hold her again for 1 minute. Right? I do anything to hold her again for a minute. And he says things like that, similar things to that. Obviously, the more he says it, the more you're like, this is kind of where it's going to go. Again, derivative, but you know what? Functional. It works. I like it. So then he, as he's walking through this exploding, space station, she gets up, she sees him, they embrace. And he says, like, I'm sorry, you were right. I love you. She says, I love you. They kiss. Everything blows up, right? Very dramatic, very thematic, very cinematic ending, right? And then, of course, Alfie crash lands as the Nomad blows up, thus ending the war, because the humans now, the mankind no longer has the ability to really do that. But we don't know where things are going to go, but she's happy at the end, and there we have it. Overall, I really dug the movie. I really liked it. I thought that, it was pretty fast paced at like 2 hours and like 15 minutes. The visual effects were great. The performances were fantastic. It was compelling enough to keep me on the edge of my seat the whole time. And even though, like I said, I could see things coming, I could really see things coming. I also was surprised by a couple of those things, right? Like when she was in a coma, that got me. That it was an embryo scan of the baby. So that was like his daughter. I kind of figured they were going to do the whole father-daughter thing, like the surrogacy, the connection that forms, but this was a bit deeper than that. And the whole time I just kept thinking of my kids. So like it got me. I'm a big old softy for that kind of stuff. And it sucks that this movie came out when it came out, because so many people I think are going to sleep on it because of, the fear of artificial intelligence and everything. And the people who just listen to the media. And if you listen to like anything coming out of like SAG-AFTRA, when they talked about artificial intelligence, it was largely hyperbolized, and it was usually based in misdirection, a lot of misinformation that was just rampantly echoed throughout the internet. Again, propaganda, massive propaganda that ultimately isn't true. And that's kind of what this movie aims to talk about, which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of the people that are trying to call it out as being pro-AI, pro-China tech propaganda are the ones who fail to really understand the humanity of the story. Or maybe I'm just a big old idiot. I don't know, but I really enjoyed it. It stuck with me for a couple days after the fact. I was really thinking about it pretty heavily. And not a lot of movies do that to me anymore. So I really just wanted to sit down and talk about this movie and express my thoughts and opinions. And I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts. Obviously for this episode, because we're launching the whole thing involving the phone line call-in, you guys aren't going to be able to do that. But remember, you can leave a voicemail 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 323-400-4956. Now, the thing I want you guys to think about here, or I want to announce here, is that not only will you be able to call in to talk about future movies for Wildcard Wednesdays, but I also want to do Franchise Fridays and, like kind of maybe do CBM Comic Book Mondays, right? And I know there's a lot more movies than just comic book movies, but to be fair, there are so many interesting films that aren't just Marvel that are good to talk about from that market. And if I'm being honest with you guys, a lot of people tend to look for those kind of movies. So for just building a community who likes comic book films, maybe we can introduce them to other films through Wildcard Wednesdays, as well as the, Franchise Fridays. And one of the things you can also do if you want me to cover a specific movie is you can sponsor an episode. Right now, sponsorships are $50. I'll watch a movie. I'll do a full episode on it. And a couple people have already done that, secured their spots for future films. And it's always open for whatever, because I like to watch new movies. I like to talk about new movies. I like to talk about old movies. I like to talk about movies. And I hope I can do it in a way that I think is compelling enough, interesting enough, entertaining enough, and positive enough to reignite that spark in you for wanting to see things maybe you didn't quite know you wanted to, or you maybe avoided, or maybe you heard something bad about, but you really just want to go and check new things out. And obviously, I always want to hear your thoughts, whether it's through comments on the YouTube page, or it's tweets on Twitter, or it's through the voicemail line. I can't wait to hear it. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you again. And go watch a new movie. Go check it out. Go watch The Creator and tell me what you think. All right.